All right, joining us on the program right now is a guy I've had a few bones to pick with him in the past over one specific topic, but I still like him for some unknown reason. My blurb is actually on the back cover of his brand new book, Matt Memories: My Wild Life in Pro Wrestling, Country Music, and with the New York Mets. John Alexander Arezzi. John, thank you for coming on the program today.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here with you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, you get to talk to Brian all the time because you do the podcast together. Which, by the way, for a plug for that too, you got so many things going on, John. You're busier now than you've ever been. Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now is the podcast where you guys actually go back and replay moments and interviews and things from the Pro Wrestling Spotlight radio show that you hosted, and then update it and talk about it in historical perspective. But we got to get it out of the way at the start. And you've been on the show here a few years ago and we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you are indeed patient zero.
Yes.
My blurb on the back of the book says, I've even forgiven him almost for being responsible for letting loose wrestling's greatest plague on an unsuspecting citizenry. You are the man, unwittingly, however, which is the only reason there was no malignancy. There was no malice aforethought in your actions, but unwittingly, you got Vince Russo in the wrestling business.
Through your fan club president.
Through my fan club president. I know we've got a bunch of new listeners, and people now are going, what, are they all on fucking drugs? But we established the last time you were on the program, and it's written in your book that Vince Russo was the, average Joe Putz owner of a video store that liked wrestling, and you got him to be a sponsor of your radio program, which led to him getting an entree in wrestling, which led to you actually holding historical place as the first person in wrestling that Vince Russo lied to, fucked around, and screwed over. But the way that you were alerted to his presence and existence in the world was through Andrew Goldberger, who at the time was my 14-year-old Jim Cornette fan club president for like 6 months. He had written me a letter saying, "Can I be your fan club president?" Okay. And one of the first things he does to try to support the wrestling industry is go out and find you some sponsors. And one of them happens to be Vince Russo. And here we go. And your thoughts on this 35 years later or whatever.
Yeah. Andrew Goldberger, who also is the youngest person, I believe, ever sued by Herb Abrams for libel.
Tell that story. That's in the book.
With his little newsletter, Herb had bounced a lot of checks. These are all topics we're covering right now on Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now. But yeah, Andrew wrote in his little Around the Ring newsletter that Herb was bouncing some checks, and Herb decided to sue a little 14-year-old kid. And unfortunately for Herb, he didn't get anywhere with it, and Andrew was right and vindicated. But Andrew was a listener, just a kind of a nerdy kid on Long Island. There was something about him. He was an intelligent kid, but I guess he used to like to take walks after school or going home from school, and he passed this video store, Will the Thrill Video, and walked in. There were a bunch of wrestling videotapes in there, and he spoke to the proprietor, one Vince Russo. And then he connected with me, and he said, this guy has a lot of wrestling stuff in the store, and he would be a good potential advertiser for you. So I reached out to Russo, set an appointment up, and before too long, he started advertising on my show in the summer of 1991. And then, he was very aggressive. He really had some aspirations of wanting to do other things, since his video stores were starting to tank because of the Blockbuster coming into prominence and wiping out all the mom and pops. So he kind of convinced me that he would be a good partner, wanted to start a newsletter up. He said he had a journalism degree. And he said that we could reach
actually, you misunderstood him. He said, I know a degree of journalism.
I know a degree of journalism. I'm sorry, Jim. Yes, that's exactly what it was. I had a gut feeling that there was something about him that I just didn't feel right about. But at that time was looking to grow the show, and he was promising all of these opportunities. Let's get this show to a bigger station, and brokered a deal in New York City for a tremendous amount of money to move the show over. And then we started the newsletter. And on the first issue, on the back page, he said Pro Wrestling Spotlight moving to WEVD, co-hosted by John Arezzi and Vince Russo, which he never talked to me about. So that, it was kind of an uneasy relationship from day one. And I saw how aggressive he was. And then, as we got into this thing, and of course we're knee deep.
I like the way you say aggressive. We say pushy. We say pushy down south here.
Well, he was a bit of both. He was definitely that way. And it really started off tenuously right from the start. And especially when we went to New York City and the scandals were breaking, and he had just a different vision. He wanted to do entertainment. He didn't want to do the hard news. I mean, so we were butting heads from the beginning. And
I think it's fair to say that we have so many, as I'm reminded constantly by the people that ask questions that we cover all the time, so many younger listeners or newer fans or whatever. Your radio show at the time was groundbreaking because you were right on top of it being in New York. You're right on top of Stamford. And that's when the steroid scandal and the trials were going on. And you were reporting on what were about to go on, the investigations, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
All the Donahue and everything. And you were reporting on that in a legitimate fashion, and Vinny Rue wanted to do the newsletter with his degree of journalism, where it was like the Raw magazine that our articles that he would write later on, where every word that ended in S had to end in Z, and he had exclamation points galore and pow, sock, bam, Batman sound effect type writing for wrestling.
Right.
And you're trying to do news on the biggest promoter in the country getting indicted for steroids, etc. So it was not meshing.
No, not at all. And then when he started contacting the WWF behind my back, that was the end. I mean, it only lasted 3 months, really. By the time we started the partnership, the time it ended, which was mid-March of 1992. I have to say that I might be the smartest person ever, because my partnership or relationship, my involvement was only 3 months, really.
Yeah, you got out quick. All he was able to do in that time was sell you that he was going to be a great sponsor and backer, move you to a more expensive radio show, muscle his way onto the show as a co-host, and then tell you that he was financially embarrassed and didn't really have any money to pay for any of this shit. That's all he managed to do, and went behind your back to try to get a favor with the WWF and later a job to cut your nuts off on the radio show.
Yeah.
That's all he was able to do. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, we want everybody's blood pressure to remain normal.